Good evening, afternoon, night, morning, whenever you find a way to watch this podcast. It is me, Omar Ashan Borja, the Burger Popper, joining for another podcast this week with a new guest. We're doing audio only at my guest request, but that is just fine. All you got to do is just hear us talk, and we have a great conversation in store for you. I'm joined by Matt from SSN, from Sideline Sports Network, SSN Maine, and we're discussing a topic that I wrote about last week about Maine moving two home games next year, or sorry, two home games in 2025 and 2026 from their home games against Merrimack and Stonehill, to Portland, Maine. And so Matt from SSN Maine is going to provide some context into the history of games at Maine. For those of you that aren't too aware of the Maine football program, Maine's campus is in Orono, Maine, and it's more upstate than Portland, which is more closer to Massachusetts. But I mean, I'll let Matt give the lowdown. But thanks for joining, Matt. And before we get into this, is there anything that you'd like to say or add to your introduction?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Omar. This is a lot of fun. I just I'm a Maine alum, played baseball for a year up there. And yeah, just kind of jumped onto the sidelines group last year. It's kind of a fun thing to do, right? I'm a season ticket holder, still pretty involved in the athletic program. I live about an hour from campus. So yeah, happy to was happy to jump into the sidelines kind of stuff last year, and yeah, it's kind of fun to see how this is developing through some of the contacts that we've made and some of the group chats. So yeah, happy to be on here.
Yeah, and thank you for joining. I know for my guests that join in the Eastern time zone, it's not easy with me out here living in the Mountain time zone. So I am grateful for you hopping on at such a late hour. But what else is there better to do on a Thursday night than talk about Maine football? You know?
Yeah. Like I said, I'm getting to this point, and as we talked about, I'm involved in amateur baseball, umpiring, and so forth, and pretty big golfer as well. But yeah, as the calendar inches closer to August, right, starting to kind of think about the college football season, and yeah, this kind of has come together at kind of a great time, kind of peeking at the UMaine schedule and thinking about some of the dates that I'll be heading up there and so forth. Yeah, this is pretty timely, and yeah, I think it's a interesting topic, right? The hosting games down in the Portland area, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I wanted to discuss was the idea itself. So 2025 and 2026, Maine will host Stonehill and Merrimack. I forget who they host and in what year, but they'll play those two Massachusetts
Mm-hmm.
schools at home in those 2 years. And something I
Yeah,
noticed, of course, being a fan of neutral site games or events like this, is
yeah,
noticing that Merrimack and Stonehill are on the northeast of Massachusetts, the northeastern part of Massachusetts. So a
sure.
game in Portland would be an easier trip. I mean, Stonehill and Merrimack fans are already going to be amped to be playing a CAA school, but I figured that the trip would be easier for those fans, and the Maine athletic department would have that in mind when moving this game to Portland to Fitzpatrick Stadium. We reference an old stadium, but that has recently gotten upgrades and renovations, which we'll
Mm-hmm.
talk about later on. So Matt, I wanted to know your thoughts on just the idea in general.
Yeah. So, you know, Portland and Orono are separated by about 2 hours, like you sort of alluded to. Orono is sort of, as I would kind of joke about, it's kind of at the end of the world. It's about 15 miles north of Bangor, so it is a bit remote, and the Portland area is sort of where the primary kind of population of the state kind of resides, and it is probably the biggest alumni base, right, for Maine athletics. So we were discussing the most recent contest was 2017 down at Fitzpatrick.
Yep.
Was that against Central Connecticut? Maybe I think we would typically schedule an NEC opponent.
It
Um,
was Delaware. The game was against Delaware
oh,
in
it
20.
was.
Yes, it
It was
was.
okay. Um, but yeah, so number one, I, I would like actually us to see us have an additional Ivy League Patriot or NEC opponent a year to take away maybe one of the bye games that we talked about, how sometimes we do two bye games. But um, so yeah, I think there's kind of a couple sort of things to think about when considering moving the game to Portland, right? I would say I'm sort of in the I, I'm probably in the crowd that supports it more in the fan base. But one of the difficult things I think we have a 12 game schedule this year, right? With the way the calendar works out, I think there's the additional week. But many years even have to look. I bet many years we're restricted to five home games, right? So I think that's a tough thing to for some of the fan base to kind of relinquish one of those home dates from Orono. Um, so yeah, with the limited home dates already up in Orono, I think that is kind of a point of contention, right? So yeah, so I guess that's one of the things that factors into it. But again, the Portland area is thriving. Like you said, it's an hour and a half from the North Shore, Metro Boston area. Easier travel maybe for some of those teams, and a chance to kind of showcase your brand and your team in the Portland area. So
Yes, I mean those are all very valid points, especially like this year. Like you said, that's something I didn't consider the 12-week season.
yeah,
It would have been a perfect year for something like that where you have that extra
sure.
home would have been perfect. But I just think what you mentioned about having building the brand in Maine, something that I always find fascinating, or I found fascinating whenever when researching the article I wrote and researching Maine is just the long-standing partnership that Maine has with their local TV channels, where Maine football is an institution in the state. And I think it's pretty cool because the local channels have been broadcasting Maine football since 1953. I just had to mention that since I'm a huge broadcast history nerd. But I just think that's just great, and it just shows how much of an institution Maine is, and how much I guess the state, with the fact that we're even talking about games being moved to Portland, the fact that they've done it multiple times before, just shows how much of an institution in the state of Maine that the Blackbirds football program is.
Yeah, I mean it's a pretty hyper local market up here. Whether it's craft beer, right, restaurants, in and not that UMaine football is necessary, our hockey team maybe some other programs maybe get some more attention, but no, people are very loyal and yeah, again, not the biggest fan base for a football program sometimes, but yeah, a very loyal and fierce fan base, I think is a good way to describe it. And yeah, I think in particular with this 12-week season, hosting a game down in the Portland area would provide a number of opportunities and positives. So yeah, I guess there's a couple a couple factors that maybe you could point to for folks that wouldn't want to host games down there. But yeah, I would be in the camp that would favor it, and certainly for other athletics too. For our basketball program, our hockey team does stuff down there. So there is a history of hosting games down in the Portland area. So yeah, and there's a few more nice restaurants in the Portland area than in Bangor or Orono. So there's that too.
Absolutely. I mean, anytime we can talk about food, that's a plus. Something I wanted to ask Something I wanted to ask about just Maine fans in general is these two games that we mentioned, Stonehill and Merrimack. No disrespect to
Mhm.
the programs, but they're
Sure.
generally lower profile programs. I mean, being in the
Yep.
NEC, the NEC is generally the weakest and one of the least publicized FCS conferences out in the country. I mean, nothing is less publicized than the Pioneer Football League, but I'd have to say that the NEC is almost a close second. So, do you
Well, and
see?
what? Yeah.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
oh yeah, no, I'm sorry. I just had to say this to kind of add to that. I mean, what does even the future of the NEC hold?
Right.
Right. With losing the programs to the MA, the Metro Athletic Conference, right, for other sports. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, with a conference with an unknown future, conference with low
Right.
profile membership, and this is not me disrespecting the conference, but
Sure.
generally, do Maine fans kind of overlook a game like this? Is this like when they look at their season ticket packages, do they see that one as like a giveaway game, a game to
Yeah.
either give to a friend or sell on the market?
Yeah, that's you know what that's a really good that's a really good point. And yeah, I maybe not this the scalping market might not be the hottest for Maine football. But no, it may be a game that'll fly under the radar. A lot of those games are on, like, maybe if it's like a warm September afternoon, right? Maybe folks have better places to be, right? But yeah, I think that's another good point, and I'll probably take that to the message board. I'm keying it into the message board right now to kind of throw at kind of the opponents of this sort of idea. But yeah, this year we open up with Colgate at home on a Friday night up in Orono. That's a great thing. Many times, believe it or not, the University of Maine, a lot of the kids will leave on the weekend. It's a lot of in-state kids. So sometimes, the weekend games don't necessarily have a ton of student attendance. But if you have those Thursday, Friday night games to open the season, mentioned in Delaware a few years ago with Joe Flacco's little brother playing up there, we open with them, and it's a great atmosphere. The kids are there, at least for the first half, anyways. And it's yeah, so yeah, it's nice. We have Colgate this year, but then yeah, we visit Merrimack, right, on the 21st down there. But yeah, Omar, I think that's a strong supporting thought, right? That maybe folks are probably you got homecoming. Maybe if you play Villanova, when Delaware, right, it was still in the conference, so on and so forth. Obviously UNH. Games like that, maybe folks get more geared up for. To William and Mary has always been a good opponent too. But yeah, so yeah, I think that's another valid yeah uh, support of moving the game to Portland.
Yeah, and speaking of valid supports, I think the last thing I wanted to discuss as well is in my research, this is something I had no idea happened until stumbling upon it. But Fitzpatrick Stadium, they fashioned it to be a USL caliber venue. I mean, there's going to be a new USL team in Portland. They
Oh
fashioned.
yes.
So your thoughts on that? Does that make in the future, I guess, us we're having this conversation now, but say they revisit this in the late 2020s, early 2030s, does the new renovations at Fitzpatrick Stadium, which I think it totaled like around like 15 or so million. I think it was like in the teens in terms of millions.
Oh
Is that
really?
something that do you think that's something that that I guess either the city of Portland, the I guess the athletic directors kind of
Mhm.
factor in new stadium, newer state, I guess newer renovations, newer accommodations, excuse me, newer accommodations. Is that something that they factor in potentially? Do you foresee that?
Yeah, you know what? I hadn't really considered that the new soccer club and maybe some of those implications. But you said it's reportedly a $15 million upgrade over
Yes, I
over a
can look that
certain
up
amount of
right
time.
now. I'll look
Yeah.
that up right
Yeah, and I think that's again kind of a bit off topic, but I think that's a great addition to the Portland area, the pro soccer club. But yeah, no, I mean the Fitzpatrick Stadium is it's a formidable stadium now, and yeah, that would be interesting to kind of see what the upgrades kind of entail. As I kind of was mentioning you, Omar, Fitzpatrick Stadium's in the shadows of Hadlock Field, which hosts the Portland Sea Dogs and Eastern League, AA affiliate of the Red Sox. So I think I played there in high school in a game, but I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure they utilize the Hadlock Field um, locker room facilities and so forth right now. It's a little yeah, it's a little different, right? You're kind of running into the baseball. It's yeah, so I guess there's some moving parts there, but yeah, perhaps that would entice the powers that be, right, to consider it again. And yeah, I don't know how far in advance is. Do you know if there's anything committed for next year? Do you think that would be on the table? As far as you said, we host Merrimack to open the season, or we host Merrimack next year, and then Stonehill the following season?
Yes, I could have the years rearranged, and I just wanted to correct myself. It was
Yeah.
1.5 million renovations, not 15 million.
Yeah.
But
I was
I'd
gonna
have
say
to check the
we're gonna
schedule.
have some nice suites for 15 million. You know, we'll be we'll be in the media suite. You know? But yeah. But no, I mean, yeah, maybe, yeah. I'm sure that's not going to hurt, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, looking at the future schedules, yes. Stonehill is 2025. You're hosting Stonehill 2025 on September 13th and Merrimack September 12th, 2026. So I think the thing is whenever there's money thrown around for
Mhm.
stadium renovations, you kind of want to get your money's worth and add more events per se. And no
Yep,
matter what type of events
true.
they are, like something, I guess a similar situation that comes to mind for me. I'm a big alternative football, spring football fan and everything. And there's a new league forming the International Football Alliance. And they have a team in Huntsville, Alabama that's playing at an old minor league park that got remodeled to be a soccer stadium. So it's strange, but it brings revenue, I guess, to the projects and makes those projects
Yeah,
worthwhile. So definitely
yeah,
something
during
to consider.
those
You know?
yeah during those open dates, right, and
Yeah,
kind of slower periods. Yeah, I saw that you're a pretty big arena football fan, right?
yeah, I am.
We had an arena team in Portland briefly. We even bought season tickets. Me and a couple of buddies, and they can't remember. I think they were the Sharks. I don't, yeah. Anyways, I
I
think
think
they
it's the
like.
Maine
Oh,
Mammoths, right? I think you're talking about
oh
the Maine
yes,
Mammoths.
yeah. And I don't know if they finished the season, but yeah, you could probably speak to that in more detail than I could. But yeah, no, Omar, I think I think really the over kind of arching sort of idea here is the University of Maine really should do more to showcase their product, right? The whole front porch, right? Athletics is a front porch for the university, blah blah blah, all that good stuff, right? And I mean, quite frankly, again, Orono's a great place, adorable little village, a nice place to spend a Saturday afternoon watching really, really high level football, right? I mean, James Madison, or previous years, William and Mary, Villanova, right? Um, but yeah, it's a little remote, and I mean, I'm not sure how if you're still living in you're not living in the Northeast right now. Where
No, I'm living in El Paso. I'm stationed in El
oh,
Paso
Pat,
right now, but I have
you're
lived
okay,
in Worcester for 10 years. Yeah, I lived in
cool,
Worcester for 10 years before moving to New Mexico in middle school. And so,
cool.
I know, never been to Maine though. Oddly enough, never been
Yeah,
to Maine.
yeah. I guess the point I'm getting to is like Portland was sort of kind of not a not a not a necessarily a super blue collar fishing town, but it's changed over the last 20 years significantly to kind of it's got this, I kind of was joking about the restaurant scene. It's kind of got this sort of bougie restaurant scene that's kind of emerged right over the last kind of 10 to 15 years. And it really became like Portland used to be a place that kids that graduated from UMaine or wherever you're from, you'd kind of get your first apartment there with your buddies, right, or whatever, or your girlfriend from college or whatever. And now after COVID, it really became a lot of New York folks and Boston folks and so forth kind of moved up, and it's really kind of a happening spot, and the population's grown, and Boston's only a couple hours away, right? You have all those schools right there. So yeah, I mean, there's a million different reasons why the schools should be more invested in hosting events and kind of doing more in the Portland area. So yeah, we'll see if we'll give up some football games. I'll certainly be down there. There's like one hotel now in Orono and a couple of Airbnbs. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think it would, you could really do some fun stuff surrounding those weekends, right? With some alumni stuff, so on and so forth. And, not to sort of carry on, be too long winded here, but a lot of it does come back to our ability to not do two buy games, right? Doing one, playing a nice, I mean, that's a selling point to a recruit, right? Hey, you get to go up against the big boys. You get to go down and play Boston College. You get to play, Oklahoma this year, right? That's fine. Two buy games, though, it puts you behind the eight ball. You got to win 8 games to get into the FCS playoffs. And yeah, it'd be nice to have an extra home game, maybe, every now and then. And not that the NEC is, Merrimack's not a bad team. Sacred Heart's okay, but it'd be nice to pick up a win over Stonehill, maybe in convincing fashion here and there. Yeah.
Yeah, I do agree. I do agree. Like you said, that's a great point. The two bye games, because something that we haven't mentioned is the other bye games, Montana State, the rare FCS bye game.
Right.
Uh, so it's interesting. I
Ooh.
mean, it's great for the fans. Like that is a daunting task though. That's pretty insane.
Yeah, and yeah, and thanks for saying that. I mean, yeah, we're playing one Division 1 team this year, but it's like last year, right? We want to get the years mixed up, but yeah, I mean, we had North Dakota State last year. That was like another. I mean, you're not going to go to the Fargo Dome, right? In September and really be super competitive. But yeah, and by the way, our tight end wrote a tight end from last year's roster, Rohan Jones, transferred. I know him a little bit, and we've stayed in contact. And I was like, you know what, I'm happy for you. He was actually a little underutilized. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him too much. He was kind of overshadowed by Sean Bowman originally when he came in. Did that transfer to Rutgers eventually, but Rohan's super talented kid. Whatever, he transferred to Montana State, right? And he's just sending me pictures of their facilities out there. They've done all kinds of upgrades and so forth. And I'm like, yeah, I can't really blame you for wanting to go play out there. Rabid fan base, love the Maine fan base and the CAA fan base, but the fans out in Montana State, Montana, yeah, it's pretty impressive. And yeah, so yeah, so that should be an interesting road trip for us, I guess.
Yeah, road trip would be something. Driving all the way from Orono all the way to Bozeman would definitely be interesting. I'm sure
You gonna
that uh,
you gonna fly to Portland, and we'll hop in. We'll be able to do a podcast on the road to
that
Bozeman.
sounds like an idea for sure. That sounds like a great idea. I think
What
I think from
to
where
Bose
I'm at, that's a
Angeles?
what was that?
Said to Bose Angeles, isn't that what they call it now?
Oh, I didn't know it had a nickname like that,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah.
Jose. That's a good one.
Everyone from California has just moved there, I think. You know.
Oh,
Yeah.
but I think through that we just expressed just the diversity of Bane's schedule and just like how I guess how many moving parts there really is through all this. Um but Matt, I think we've covered all the topics that
Great.
we had talked about beforehand. Is there
Yeah.
anything final you want to add or you want to promote anything? Now's your time.
No, I think I've probably sort of carried on and colored outside the lines a little bit through our discussion. So, yeah, again, I just kind of jumped in doing some of this stuff for fun with sideline sports. So, I hope this is sort of a coherent discussion and there's some takeaways. I think, yeah, there's some folks that don't want to give up the games to Portland, but I don't think an early season matchup against Stonehill would be a bad thing to kind of relinquish to Fitzpatrick and Portland Air.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
I do agree, and I would love to see it sometime. Would definitely
Yeah.
love to see it played. I love neutral site games, and I think it'd be great for the main program as well.
Yep.
Until next time, everyone. Thank you for watching and tuning in. I hope that you learned a little bit more about the main program. Thank you so much, Matt, for your insight and just your just this conversation. I really enjoyed this conversation. I learned a lot. Make sure you follow Matt at SSN Maine. I'll put that link in the description below. But until next time, everyone, thank you for tuning in and peace, love, and soul on the Burger Popper.
Thanks so much.